Welcome and thank you for joining me. This is Laurie of Laurie's Heirloom Sewing, and now 3 Acre Lake. 3 Acre Lake and my sister Caroline, who resides in the state of Alabama, are part of a new series I'm developing. She's a master gardener, and we are going to be working on some videos that I will upload about gardening. Some of the quirkier things that you might not be familiar with or you haven't thought of before. Caroline is a master gardener and has really helped me with a huge undertaking, which was a new garden at the house that my husband and I now live in. It had a very formal garden that I have kind of shaped over the last year to suit my needs. The plants needed a lot of care, and learning about where the sun hits the garden is very, very important to try to get plants that will respond to shade or will respond to low light or will respond to all day sun. You really need to know what your garden is going to experience throughout the growing season and even after. So this is a great way to get that information. Do a video, take pictures, make notes, check the temperature, kind of know the day, the time, the month, what your average temperature is at what particular time. Alabama is 2 hours ahead of Washington State. That's why there was a discrepancy on that time, or appeared to be. Okay, right here I found a bird in the bird bath, and I was desperately trying to focus. There we go. She loves that bird bath, and I just cleaned it today. That's something that you should do on a regular basis. Side note, okay, back on track. So I'm looking at the sun. I'm trying to decide what plants are getting how much light at 3 p.m. in my garden. This is the time of day when they're going to get the most amount of sun in July. So that Asiatic lily is happy there. That massively tall, huge hydrangea that we're now looking at again needs a little bit of sun, so apparently it's reaching. It's a huge, huge, huge Big Daddy mop head. And then this little area right here are plants that don't really require a lot of sun. And I think I kind of walked past some of this, but we come back to it in a minute. Boy, I can see I've got a lot of shaping I need to do. And look at all that sun. We're facing shabby Versailles right now. And it is the area in the garden that I thought got the most sun at this time of day. I was very sure that this was the area that had the most amount of sun for the longest period of time in July on a sunny day, which it's kind of rare. This particular year, we've not been getting a lot of days with sun. In fact, it is supposed to rain tomorrow, so I'm glad that I tried to do this today. Oh, I'm tracking where the sun, so about where that tree ends, right there is where the sun ends up at the end of the day, and it is directly on this area of shabby Versailles. So it does get the most amount of sun in the summertime on a sunny day. And that is why the vast majority of the plants are sun-loving plants. So as we come up to the new clematis right there, and then the massive, huge clematis on the fence, I discover, for the first time in a year, that Blueberry Manor, this area right here, also gets a great amount of sun. So I've been struggling with a what to do with two plants dilemma that I have. They are pretty much in shade. Oh, there's our little bird friend again. She came over to say hi. And then there she goes back to the maple tree. Okay, so I'm just delighted that I've discovered that Blueberry Manor also gets a great amount of sun. I honestly did not know that that was the case. I've got to take care of that barberry. It's just out of control. That's another thing that helps. Now this one I've trimmed, but they're very fast growers. But if you will notice, back in the shade, way back in the back in Shade Palace, on that fence, there's a rose and a rosemary. The rosemary is on the left. And they both are desperately seeking sun. I honestly thought that area got more sun, but it kind of cuts off right at the edge there. So I'm going to move both the rose and the rosemary over to Blueberry Manor. So having done this, I've gained that information that I desperately needed. So those two will get moved. Now we're going to, that's a limelight hydrangea, and we're going to look under the arborvitae. That is just a wonderful haven for birds and dragonflies. They really like kind of hanging out back in there. But we have quite a number of bird nests, some hummingbird nests. Down about halfway is a Stellar's jay nest, and I believe there's a few chickadee nests in that area, but for sure the Stellar's jay, and there are at least one hummingbird nest, I think right over my head here. But the temperature drops dramatically back behind the arb, and you know, if you had plants that you wanted to kind of provide some shade for, you could put them behind an arborvitae. Don't really recommend it, but if they were in a pot and they were getting too hot, you could put them back there to cool off. My puppy's toys, my wagon. Now we're looking at probably the shadiest spot, which would be the beginning part of the Shade Palace, which we are now passing on the left. There are a tremendous number of plants that really like the shade, and they're all tucked in kind of in this particular little spot back here. I think I wander back and forth a few times, just kind of reveling in the sun, enjoying it, because we've not really had very much. And that little Acer right there I bought, it was about an inch tall when I bought it a few years ago, and it's starting to really fill up. And then there's this huge hydrangea that provides me with beautiful cut flower arrangements all summer. It's quite a delight. But as you can see, it is truly reaching for sun. Which is fine. I don't mind. It can get very tall. It just needs to stay within the border, and I have to trim it to keep it out of the way. This is one of those mop head hydrangeas that when it gets wet, it really does just flop over. So when it rains, all of it is just practically laying in the yard. I know that there are some new varieties that don't do that, but this one I think is an older variety. So now I'm talking about how wet it stays. Even on a warm day, it can be very wet back in that area. It hardly ever dries, even under this viburnum that we're walking by right here. So many weeds I've got to deal with. They do get away from you. More are more hydrangeas. And then don't ever plant trees as close to your house as these two trees have been planted. That's just my advice. It isn't something that you want to have to deal with. So in the long run, keep trees away from your house. So what I was talking about there is that in Alabama, let's go back. So in Alabama or in other states where, like the southern states, where you're trying to keep the roots cool and mulched, you want your plants to be trimmed in an A shape where they're narrow at the top and wide at the bottom. That'll help the root system stay nice and wet even during potential drought. I won't say wet, but they don't dry out as quickly. They also will keep, because they're on the ground and low, not trimmed up high, that helps mulch that area. It can suppress weeds. It can help with some of the pressures that plants can feel in the summertime. So that is why I was focused on that plant there for just a moment. Now that's not the case here in Washington State, where we get huge amounts of rain. We don't need our plants on the ground, so the trimming is going to be a little different, like you see on that viburnum right there. I don't want leaves on the ground. That will cause a mold issue. It can also cause rotting. Your plant roots can rot. It doesn't really help with weed suppression. Everything is just really wet. If your roots get too wet, then that whole system begins to break down in that situation. Now this that I'm pointing at here is a Weigela that I found underneath the euonymus there to the left, and that little dwarf lilac, that's the euonymus there. Burning bush was huge, and that little dwarf lilac was so overgrown, and both of those were completely on top of that Weigela. And I was just out there working one day and discovered that I had this little poor thing was just overrun. Both of those had been allowed to grow right over the top and onto the flagstone path. So I have separated all three of them, and they're kind of playing nice right now, but I do have some more shaping and pruning and lifting that I need to do on the two in the back there. They need to be lifted up a little bit more and give that poor Weigela a little bit more room. But I had no idea. I just happened to see it literally just out of the corner of my eye. It had one flower, and I thought, what in the world is that? So I just felt around, and there it was. I know it's hard to imagine, but I don't have pictures of how bad it was. It was truly crazy. That whole area right there that I'm pointing at, I call that Candy Flower Castle. It is all shade all the time. There's no sunlight at any point during the day that hits the ground in Candy Flower Castle. So everything there has to be able to tolerate shade pressure. Okay, so now we're looking at Shade Palace again. I think we do another walk by. There's a Linton Rose. Not really sure what I was focusing on here. Oh, I think I might talk about the monkey flower. It is a little herb that just appeared here one day. It was not here last year. Oh, I don't know what I'm doing. You're either going to see this or you're not going to see this. I'll just go ahead and say that. I might edit it out, but if you see it, then great. If not, well, we won't know what I'm talking about. Okay. Okay, so we have the big weeping Acer there. There's the Gara. Not sure where I'm going with this, although I can tell you there's a lot of shade-loving stuff. Okay, so back in the back, kind of hiding behind that maple tree, is a bleeding heart. It was recently sort of mauled by some dogs, and I'm hoping I can get it to come back. That right there is monkey flower, and it is such a precious little thing to me. I'm so glad I didn't just jerk it out of the ground when it wasn't blooming under the false pretense that it was just a weed. That's kind of what I'm doing, by the way. I'm not pulling weeds until I see what the flowers look like. I would have lost the candy flower had I done that, and obviously the monkey flower. There's the Gara. I love it. There's a dead plant back there that I haven't dealt with yet. But as you can see, there's just nothing but shade. It's all shade all the time, all day. So right there, right above the little statue's head, is a peony that loves it back there. It's a red peony. This is a fuchsia right here that just finished blooming and is pushing new buds. It's going to be in full bloom again fairly soon. They are a shade lover. And I don't know what that was about. I'm just pointing wildly. Okay. And again, I'm going to say please don't plant trees close to your house. It just causes problems in the long run. There's plenty of places for trees. Next to your house is not one of them. I recommend shrubs. You can control shrubs. Trees are not good. They mess up your roof. They drop leaves. Even if they're pine trees or any other type of conifer, you're going to have needles on your roof next to your house. You'll be tracking them in. They can drop branches. It's just not a good idea. That pot right there is full of birdseed that turned into plants. This is back where we started with another look at the dahlia. I'm very happy. Oh, I think there's a spider I wanted to show you. If you don't like spiders, close your eyes. Okay, and then my little spider that I've been allowing to live. She's got some babies up there. Oh, she's got a couple of egg sacs up there. So she hides up there during the day, and then when the sun goes down, she comes out, rebuilds her net, her web, catches insects, eats them. She's a great gardening help. So I think we're done. I was saying if you've got questions or comments, leave them in the comment section below. And Caroline and I will be happy to answer any of your questions, and we hope to be doing more of these.